It starts with a ling, a beautiful, noble, and destructive lie, one you've heard since you were a child. Be good, work hard, follow the rules, and life will reward you. You believed it, didn't you? We all did, until reality whispered a darker truth. Look around. The kindest people aren't sitting in penthouses. The most honest don't run corporations. The most loyal aren't leading nations. Instead, they're often the ones passed over, left behind, quietly wondering why doing the right thing didn't lead to a better life. Now pause. Ask yourself, why is it that teachers, nurses, social workers, those who give so much, often have so little, while those who bend the rules, who speak with polished tongues and hidden knives, rise to power? The truth is uncomfortable, but here it is. The system isn't broken. It's designed this way. The rules aren't meant to lift everyone up. They're meant to control, to pacify, to keep the majority obedient while a select few rewrite the game in their favor. This isn't a call to abandon ethics or descend into chaos. It's a call to awaken, to recognize that morality, when blind and absolute, can become a cage, and those who wield it uncritically, they become predictable, vulnerable, and easy to control, because the world doesn't reward goodness, it rewards effectiveness. Let's illustrate this with a simple story. Picture a marketplace. Two merchants stand side by side. One, John, honest to the core, fair prices, exact change, quality goods. The other, Marcus, wears a charming smile, but behind the curtain, he dilutes his products and tips the scales. At first glance, you root for John, but look again a year later. Marcus has expanded, owns 5 stalls, pays off the inspectors, and shapes the market. John, still hoping honesty alone will bring prosperity. This isn't fiction, it's how power works. So ask yourself, are you John or Marcus? More importantly, who do you want to be? Because if you're still clinging to the belief that virtue alone guarantees success, then life will keep humbling you. This isn't bitterness, it's clarity. The clarity that only comes when you stop pretending the world is fair and start understanding how it really operates. Let's make one thing clear. This journey isn't about becoming heartless. It's about becoming strategic. It's about mastering the mask. The strongest leaders, the wealthiest visionaries, they often speak in the language of kindness, of justice, of fairness. But underneath, a mind that calculates, adapts, and conquers. They know the mask soothes the masses. And while others are distracted by appearances, they build empires. You're here because something in you senses that truth. Maybe you've worked hard but seen others rise above you through politics or manipulation. Maybe you've stayed loyal while someone less deserving took your place. Maybe you've watched from the sidelines angry but silent. If so, this is your awakening. Because here's the lesson that part one offers, and it's just the beginning. Success isn't about being good, it's about being effective. And effectiveness begins by removing the illusion that morality, when followed blindly, will save you. Sometimes it will sink you. You must learn when to act, when to speak, and when to wear the mask. Because the world doesn't belong to the pure, it belongs to the prepared. Now that the illusion has been cracked, we move forward into a deeper understanding of masks, of perception, and of the quiet power that shapes everything around us. This is not just knowledge, it's a shift in consciousness. Are you ready to go further? To rise in this world, you must master the art of appearances. This is not deception for its own sake. It's strategy. You must understand a truth that the elite have always known. People don't reward honesty. They reward the illusion of honesty. They don't follow truth. They follow perception. And the moment you grasp this, you stop wasting energy on being seen as authentic. You begin designing your mask. Think of politicians. They speak of values, of family, of justice. But behind closed doors, many cut deals, secure favors, and protect dynasties. Their public image? A curated fiction designed to win hearts, and it works. Not because they're good, but because they appear good. People don't vote for reality. They vote for what makes them feel safe, inspired, or hopeful. That's the power of perception. Now let's bring this closer to your life. Consider someone at your workplace who always gets ahead. They're not the most talented, not the most hardworking, but somehow they keep rising. Why? Because they've learned to manage appearances. They stay late when it counts, not every night, just when it's visible. They speak well in meetings, praise others in public, and downplay rivals in private. They craft an image of integrity while moving with ruthless precision behind the scenes. They don't show hunger, they show virtue. And that mask disarms everyone around them. This is your wake-up call. If you wear your ambition on your sleeve, people will fear you. If you wear your virtue instead, people will trust you. Through trust, you gain access to new opportunities and can create positive influence. People respond well to ambition that is presented with thoughtfulness and care. When you channel your drive through a constructive approach, you can achieve remarkable things. For centuries, effective leaders have understood the importance of perception. They recognized that inspiring confidence is essential. This is because people often connect with the clear vision that is presented to them. That is why leaders use symbols to unite, executives share inspiring mission statements, and public figures craft their message carefully. A clear and positive presentation is a powerful way to communicate values and goals. Consider this. How are you presenting your ideas? Is your approach helping you connect with others? Thoughtful communication can help you make progress. This isn't about being inauthentic. It's about choosing the right way and the right time to share your perspective. Every conversation is an opportunity to build understanding. Effective individuals shape their narrative with purpose and clarity. This careful approach helps present your intentions in the best light, avoiding early misunderstandings. It allows you to develop your ideas and gain support, opening doors to new opportunities. People respond well to a positive and collaborative spirit. By speaking with consideration, you create an environment of trust where your contributions can be appreciated. This is the art of effective and thoughtful communication. It's clarity. You're not here to destroy others. You're here to stop destroying yourself by clinging to ideals that keep you stuck. Wearing a mask doesn't mean abandoning your values. It means adapting your strategy. Because in this world, those who wear masks wisely shape the future. Those who wear their truth too openly often find themselves cut out of it. As we continue, we'll explore the next phase: how to turn morality from a burden into a weapon. How to use the very system that limits others as your secret tool of advancement. You've learned to wear the mask. Now, let's learn to use it. There's a darker power hidden in plain sight. Morality, not as a code to follow, but as a tool to wield. Most people live by rules they never question. They believe in being fair, kind, and selfless. Noble traits, yes, but also predictable ones. And what's predictable can be controlled. This is where your power begins to multiply, when you stop being guided by morality and start using it as a weapon. Let's return to history for a moment. When Rome expanded its empire, it didn't just conquer by sword, it conquered with values: Roman law, Roman justice, Roman civilization. They convinced other cultures that surrendering to Rome wasn't defeat, it was progress. People submitted, believing they were embracing fairness. But what they really embraced was submission wrapped in moral language. Rome used morality as a leash. You can do the same in modern life, not through force, but through influence. Imagine you're in a negotiation. The other side wants more than they should. You don't argue with numbers. You remind them of fairness. You appeal to honor, to integrity. You use morality like a chain around their ambition. You guide them not with logic, but with the guilt they carry inside. And while they hesitate, you gain ground. This doesn't make you heartless. It makes you aware. Because if you think back, you've likely been on the receiving end of this tactic many times. A colleague says, "It's only right you cover my shift. I helped you last week." A manager insists, "Stay late because you're loyal, and loyal people go far." A brand markets itself as ethical, then sells you an illusion for triple the price. They aren't appealing to facts. They're appealing to your sense of morality, to control you. The elite do this constantly. They speak of fairness while exploiting loopholes. They speak of equality while guarding privilege. They build reputations of virtue to mask empires of manipulation. And the crowd believes them because the crowd wants to believe in goodness. The crowd wants to feel safe. So give them that. Let your mask of morality shine. Make others feel secure around you. And when the time is right, use their expectations to your advantage. A story to illustrate. In a small town, two rival shopkeepers competed for trust. One loudly proclaimed his honesty, donated to charity, gave speeches about ethics. The other said little but quietly paid people to spread doubts about his rival's pricing. Soon, whispers turned into rumors. Customers left the loud moralist, believing he was a fraud. The quiet one took his place. He understood that morality isn't about truth, it's about perception, and perception wins. Here's what you must remember. Morality is a social script. Most people follow it automatically, without questioning who wrote it. You, however, must rise above the script. See it for what it is. Use it when it serves you and abandon it when it cages you. This isn't cruelty, it's survival in a world designed to punish those who play fair too long. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still trying to earn rewards by being good? Where are you showing vulnerability, hoping it will be respected? Every time you do, you hand control to someone else. The Machiavellian doesn't do that. He uses morality like a stage prop, visible, comforting, but ultimately hollow. Behind the curtain, he moves with purpose, with strategy, with precision. In the next chapter, we'll explore the hidden disciplines that fuel this strategy: patience, leverage, and substitution. Tools that turn temporary weakness into unstoppable momentum. Because it's not enough to wear a mask. You must also know when to wait, when to move, and how to build power even when you start with nothing. Let's talk about the one trait that separates the powerful from the impulsive: patience. In a culture that worships speed, fast money, instant fame, quick results, true patience is a hidden superpower. Most people are slaves to their emotions. They want success today, recognition tomorrow. But that craving makes them easy to manipulate, easy to predict, and easy to defeat. The powerful understand this. They let others rush while they wait, observe, and position themselves quietly. Think of life like chess. Amateurs make bold moves early, thinking aggression equals strength. Masters wait. They exchange small sacrifices for positional advantage. They study the board. Then with one decisive strike, they win. Not because they were faster, but because they were more precise. That's the difference between noise and mastery. Patience is not weakness, it's discipline. Here's a story. A man joined a mid-sized company. His coworkers scrambled for attention, constantly trying to impress the boss. He didn't. For 2 years, he kept his head down, studied internal dynamics, built quiet alliances, and watched. Then a scandal forced leadership to reshuffle. Chaos erupted. While others panicked, he stepped in, not as the loudest, but as the calmest. Within weeks, he was promoted, 3 levels up. Not because he fought harder, but because he waited smarter. This is what most people miss. They confuse activity with progress. They rush to speak when silence would serve them better. They demand recognition when invisibility would allow them to move freely. Patience gives you leverage. It lets others reveal their flaws while you strengthen your position. But patience alone isn't enough. You must also understand leverage. That is, using small inputs to create large outcomes. Morality teaches you to work hard, but working hard without leverage is just glorified labor. The most powerful people in the world don't break their backs, they move systems. They command attention, capital, influence. They don't carry the weight. They design the machines that do. Take business as an example. 2 people decide to sell handmade furniture. One works 16 hours a day, building and selling each piece himself. The other builds a website, hires workers, uses automation, partners with influencers. After a year, the first is exhausted with modest gains. The second owns a thriving brand. That's leverage. One multiplied effort, the other relied only on sweat. The elite don't tell you this. They praise hard work in public while privately building layers of leverage: systems, people, capital, platforms. They want you to stay busy so you never look up and ask, why am I still stuck? If you're trading time for money, you're still in the trap. If you're building something that earns while you sleep, you're stepping out of it. Now here's the third principle: substitution. Maybe you don't have wealth, power, or influence yet, so substitute. Use strategy instead of strength. Use charm instead of credentials. Use alignment instead of authority. Every weakness can be exchanged for a tactical advantage if you think creatively. One man lacked money to advertise his startup, so he created bold, controversial content that media couldn't ignore. He got coverage worth millions for free. Another woman couldn't get hired due to her resume, so she began writing insights on social platforms, gaining a following. Employers came to her. Substitution works because it rewrites the rules others follow blindly. So ask yourself 3 questions. Are you rushing or waiting? Are you working or leveraging? Are you blocked or substituting? Because once you master these 3 disciplines, patience, leverage, and substitution, you stop playing the short game. You start building legacy-level power. In the next part, we will go deeper into the ultimate weapon of the elite, controlling perception. Not truth, not facts, perception. Because when you shape what others believe, you don't have to fight for power. It comes to you. Perception is the invisible currency of power. While most people chase reality, facts, results, truth, the powerful chase something far more potent, belief. Because in every arena of life, it's not the truth that wins. It's the version of the truth people believe. Think about this. Are the most luxurious brands really that much better? Often no, but they've mastered perception. They've wrapped their product in a story, an aura of exclusivity. And people don't buy the product. They buy the perception, the feeling of status, the illusion of distinction. That's what moves markets. Politicians do this too. A photo op in front of a factory, a rehearsed speech about justice, a handshake with a child. These symbols are not solutions, they're perception play. They don't change reality, but they change what people feel. And feelings decide votes, logic rarely does. Let's take a story from ancient warfare. A Chinese general once found himself outnumbered. His city was vulnerable. Instead of preparing for a hopeless defense, he ordered the gates thrown open. Then he calmly sat atop the wall, playing a lute. The enemy hesitated. It had to be a trap. Why else would he be so calm? They retreated. He saved his army not by strength, but by perception. You must begin to ask yourself, what do people believe about you? Not what is true, but what story do you allow them to see? Because if you don't control your narrative, someone else will. And once they do, your power belongs to them. Controlling perception doesn't mean lying. It means selective truth, strategic silence, calculated signals. For example, arriving early to a meeting isn't just about punctuality. It's about signaling respect, control, discipline. Wearing clean, sharp clothing isn't vanity. It's a visual cue of order and influence. Small choices shape large impressions, and impressions shape outcomes. Here's the psychological reason why this works. The human brain is wired for pattern recognition, not deep analysis. People form conclusions quickly, then look for evidence to support what they already believe. First impressions create anchors. If they see you as competent, they will excuse your mistakes. If they see you as weak, they'll doubt even your successes. That's why perception is more durable than truth. Now imagine applying this consciously. You walk into a room with quiet confidence. You speak less, but with clarity. You listen more, but when you respond, it's with impact. You shape how others experience your presence. You become magnetic not by force, but by framing. Perception management is not optional. It's a requirement if you want power, influence, or freedom. Stop waiting for people to see your intentions. Show them the version of you that aligns with their trust. Control the narrative. Don't explain. Project. And remember, those at the top already know this. Celebrities curate their lives like a gallery. Executives speak in visions, not spreadsheets. Leaders create emotional resonance, not logical persuasion. The masses want to believe. Your job is to give them something worth believing in. In the next part, we dive even deeper, not into how people think, but how they feel. Because if perception is the gateway, desire is the fuel. And once you understand how to manipulate desire, you no longer chase influence. It begins to chase you. Desire is the force that moves the world. Not logic, not reason, not even need. What people crave, what they secretly hunger for, that's what drives action. And if you want to influence, persuade, or lead, you must stop appealing to logic and start speaking to desire. Look at advertising. It rarely sells products. It sells feelings. A car commercial doesn't show engine specs. It shows freedom, dominance, admiration. A beauty product isn't about ingredients. It's about confidence, attraction, and belonging. People don't buy facts. They buy identity. They buy a version of themselves they want to become. Now consider how this applies in your life. When you pitch an idea, do you focus on its logic or its emotional payoff? When you present yourself, are you highlighting credentials or evoking trust and aspiration? Influence begins when you shift your language from the head to the heart. Here's a story. A man owned land that no one wanted, swampy, mosquito-infested, useless. He couldn't sell it logically, so he stopped trying. Instead, he painted a dream: exclusive lakeside estates, luxury retreats, early investment opportunities for elite buyers. He didn't sell the land, he sold the vision. And they came, not for what it was, but for what it represented. That is the essence of manipulating desire. It's not about changing reality. It's about changing the story people attach to that reality. And once you master this, you stop fighting resistance. You become the magnet that draws people in. Psychology confirms this. Neuroscience shows that decisions are made emotionally first, then justified with logic after. Even the most rational people are driven by unseen impulses: status, love, fear, inclusion. If you don't understand these impulses, your influence will always be limited. But if you do, your words can bypass doubt and land directly in the unconscious. This is why morality often fails in persuasion. It speaks to what people should do. Desire speaks to what they want to do. Morality asks for sacrifice. Desire promises reward. If you want true power, stop preaching values. Start feeding dreams. But here's the key: desire must be managed, not overplayed. Too much, and you become manipulative. Too little, and you become forgettable. The masters know how to tease, not pressure, to hint, not demand. They know how to leave space for the imagination to fill. Because the most powerful desires are those people believe they chose themselves. Ask yourself, are you trying to convince people, or are you awakening something in them? Are you offering facts, or are you offering transformation? Because when you speak to desire, you don't need to argue. You need only to trigger the right feeling, and the decision is made. Look at leaders, visionaries, even cult figures. Their power doesn't come from better arguments. It comes from their ability to embody a dream, to stand for something others yearn for. They become symbols. And symbols don't need to explain themselves. They are felt. This is your challenge now. Identify the desires of those you wish to lead or influence. Understand what they ache for. Then become the mirror that reflects their hidden longing. Become the voice that whispers, "This is who you were meant to be." In the next part, we take a more strategic turn. If desire is the fuel, then division is the control. The powerful don't just inspire, they divide. Because united enemies are dangerous, but divided rivals are easy to conquer. Divide and conquer. It's an ancient principle, yet still one of the most effective strategies for gaining and keeping power. When your rivals unite, they become strong. When they mistrust each other, they weaken themselves. That's why the most dangerous enemy is not the loud one. It's the one quietly planting seeds of doubt, splintering alliances, and turning groups inward. History is full of examples. The Roman Empire ruled vast populations not simply with force, but with division. They encouraged tribal disputes, manipulated local leaders, and let factions fight among themselves. While the people battled each other, Rome positioned itself as the stabilizing force, the savior. And in doing so, it expanded without exhausting its armies. Modern power works no differently. In politics, the most skilled players don't just rally support, they sow conflict among opponents. They feed rumors, spark controversies, and let rivals burn each other out. In business, corporations use similar tactics, pitting small competitors against each other, spreading false information, even staging competition just to create distraction. Here's a micro story. In a mid-sized company, two managers were vying for promotion. A third, quiet and unnoticed, whispered different things to both. "Watch your back," he told one. "They're trying to undercut you," he told the other. Slowly, mistrust grew. Meetings turned tense. Projects stalled. By the time the leadership stepped in, both had discredited themselves. The third man, untouched by the chaos, was promoted. He didn't fight, he divided, and then he conquered. This is not about creating enemies or spreading chaos for no reason. It's about preventing others from becoming a threat. When potential rivals are focused on each other, they're not focused on you. When the teams are fragmented, they're easier to influence. And when conflict erupts, the one who appears calm, neutral, and stable gains the most trust. Morality tells you to bring people together, to be the peacemaker. But the Machiavellian mindset sees deeper. Unity among others is only useful if it serves your power. If it threatens your position, then division becomes your shield. The wise do not attack directly. They destabilize the foundation beneath their opponent. This tactic also works in persuasion. When you want someone to adopt your view, don't just argue your case. First, divide their certainty. Ask questions that plant doubt. Highlight inconsistencies. Point out divisions within their belief system. Once the internal conflict begins, they become open. And once they're open, you move in. But be careful. Division is a sharp blade. Use it with precision. Reckless use creates chaos that can consume you as well. Subtlety is key. Let others believe the conflict came from within, not from your hand. A word here, a look there. A small revelation at the right time. That's all it takes, so reflect. In your life, where are others united against you? Where are coalitions forming that threaten your advancement? And what quiet fault lines can you exploit? Not to destroy, but to disarm. Remember, the battlefield is not always physical. Most battles happen in minds, in whispers, in perceptions. In the next part, we move from strategy to psychology. Because once you've divided your opposition and stirred desire in the hearts of the crowd, there's one more rule to follow. Never apologize for winning, because the moment you feel guilty for your success, you begin to surrender it. Success in this world carries a strange burden. The moment you begin to rise, whether in wealth, power, or influence, people expect you to apologize for it, to downplay your victories, to shrink your ambitions so others feel comfortable. But here's the truth the powerful understand. You owe the world no apology for winning. Morality whispers that you should be humble, that you should give back, that you should not stand too tall. But humility, when performed to appease others, becomes submission. And submission is not a virtue, it's a leash. Think of the great builders of history, industrial titans, visionaries, leaders. Did they apologize for their empires? No, they let the crowd complain while they rewrote the rules. The masses cried unfair, and they kept building. Because they understood that guilt is a tool of control. If others can make you feel guilty for your success, they can manipulate you into giving it up. This doesn't mean arrogance. It means clarity. You're not required to soften your drive so others feel less threatened. You're not responsible for managing other people's insecurities. And most of all, you're not obligated to justify your wins to those who refuse to play the game at your level. Here's a personal reflection to consider. How many times have you downplayed your achievement to avoid making others jealous? How often have you said, "I was just lucky," or "it wasn't a big deal," when deep down you earned every inch of it? That's learned guilt, learned obedience, and it's a pattern you must break. Let me be blunt. The world doesn't remember the excuses. It remembers the builders. It remembers those who rose unapologetically and created outcomes others could only dream of. And yes, some called them ruthless, some called them cold. But those same critics later read their biographies, studied their strategies, and secretly wished they'd had the courage to do the same. Winning will cost you comfort. It may cost you approval. But what it gives you is freedom. The freedom to choose, to create, to define your life on your terms. And if that bothers people who never dared to rise, so be it. Here's a story. A woman rose from nothing to become CEO of a national company. Along the way, she was called aggressive, unlikable, too ambitious. Every time she tried to play small, she stalled. Every time she owned her edge, she advanced. Eventually, she stopped apologizing. She built a legacy, and the same people who once mocked her now tell her story as inspiration. That's what happens when you stop seeking permission to succeed. You redefine what's possible, not just for yourself, but for others watching. You become the proof that power belongs to those who claim it without shame. So here's the shift. Stop waiting for the world to congratulate you. Stop dimming your light. Stop shrinking to fit into the narratives of mediocrity. You are not here to be agreeable. You are here to win. And when you do it boldly. In the final parts of this series, we'll tie it all together because the journey doesn't end with power. It evolves into legacy. And legacy requires transformation, not just in strategy, but in identity. If you've come this far, you're already different. Now it's time to become untouchable. Legacy is not built on isolated wins. It is built on transformation of your mindset, your strategy, and your identity. By now, you understand that morality alone won't save you. That power doesn't come from playing fair. It comes from mastering the game most don't even realize they're in. But there's one final evolution that separates the truly untouchable from the merely successful: the ability to reinvent yourself entirely. The journey from powerless to powerful is not linear. It's cyclical. First comes belief. You buy into the lie that virtue alone will lead you to success. Then comes disappointment. You realize the world doesn't reward goodness, it rewards effectiveness. Then comes anger at the system, at others, at yourself. But the turning point isn't in the rage. It's in the choice you make after it. Some stay bitter forever. They play the victim, blaming the world for their failures. But a few, just a few, choose differently. They shed the old skin. They let go of the need to be seen as good and instead focus on being great. Quietly, strategically, unapologetically. This is where your new identity is born. You stop reacting and start calculating. You stop obeying and start designing. You no longer wait for approval. You move forward with intent. You wear the mask when needed, but behind it, you remain fiercely aware of who you are and what you're building. Let me give you a real-world example. A man once struggled in every job, too honest, too eager to please, constantly overlooked. But one day he realized something. He was telling the wrong story about himself. So he changed, not his core values, but his posture. He dressed better, spoke less, asked sharper questions. He stopped broadcasting his ambition and started controlling how others perceived him. Within 2 years, he had risen to a leadership position. What changed? Not his talent, his identity. That's the final form of power. When you realize that who you appear to be is not who you have to be, that you can design your image, shape your impact, and build your influence with intention. Not to deceive, but to protect, to elevate, and to command. You become what others fear and admire, not because you begged for it, but because you embodied it. Confidence replaces anxiety. Precision replaces noise. Strategy replaces reaction. And your legacy begins to take form, not through flashy moves, but through consistent, deliberate execution. So ask yourself now, who are you becoming? Not who you were, not who others expect you to be, but who you choose to become when you stop apologizing and start constructing your future with discipline and edge. The next part will bring this journey to its peak. We'll revisit every principle, every piece of the armor you've built, and show how they combine into a mindset that makes you immune to the chaos around you. Because in the end, the goal isn't just success, it's sovereignty. The ability to move through this world untouchable, undeniable, and completely in control. Now we arrive at the convergence point. You've seen the fragments: mask, leverage, patience, perception, desire. Each one powerful alone, but together they form a system, a mindset, a way of moving through the world that makes you untouchable. Not because you dominate through brute force, but because you operate at a level most can't even see. This system begins with a core belief. The world is not fair, but it is programmable. Most people live reactively, trapped in cycles of hope and disappointment. They believe effort equals reward, but you know better now. You understand that reward flows to those who anticipate, adapt, and influence outcomes before others even realize a game is being played. Let's reconstruct what you have learned. You wear a mask, not to deceive, but to disarm. When outwardly, you embody the values others trust. Internally, you move with purpose. The mask is not weakness, it's armor. It protects your intent until it's time to act. You use morality, not as a shackle, but as a tool. When others cling to it blindly, you see its psychological power. You weaponize their own expectations. You disarm them with guilt. You bind them with virtue. And all the while, you remain free. You practice patience, not as passivity, but as preparation. While others rush, you wait. You build systems, relationships, knowledge. And when the storm comes, you're not scrambling, you're positioned. The opportunity walks to your doorstep because you made it inevitable. You master leverage. You stop trading time for scraps and start multiplying your influence. Through people, through platform, through automation. The powerful don't move faster, they move smarter. They make others move for them. You substitute where others surrender. No money? Use influence. No influence? Use alignment. No power? Use perception. Every weakness becomes a doorway if you stop saying, I can't, and start asking, what can I use instead? You control perception because truth is heavy and complex, but belief? Belief is light, flexible, contagious. You don't need to be the strongest, just perceived as strong. You don't need to own the world, just be seen as owning the room. You manipulate desire. You speak to what people crave, not what they should want. You bypass logic and go straight to emotion. Because emotion moves mountains. It builds brands. It wins elections. It turns products into symbols and leaders into legends. You divide and conquer, not through chaos, but through subtlety. You destabilize coalitions that threaten you. You let others weaken themselves through distrust. You don't crush your rivals. You let them crush each other. And above all, you never apologize for winning. You understand that guilt is a leash disguised as virtue, that your success does not require permission, that greatness, when lived without apology, becomes legacy. What you're building is sovereignty, not just power over people, but power over your own path. You become unshakable, not because you control everything, but because you no longer need control to feel secure. You've internalized the game. You've mastered the code. In the next part, we begin applying this mindset to the real world. Career, relationships, influence, negotiation, not as separate areas, but as a unified battlefield where your new identity becomes your greatest weapon. Because strategy is nothing without application, and you are now ready to act. Now it's time to apply everything. Philosophy without practice is just noise. Real power comes when you carry these principles into everyday life, into your career, your relationships, your conversations. The battlefield isn't just boardrooms and politics. It's every space where influence, trust, and decisions live. Start with your career. Most people believe promotions are based on performance. That's the surface level truth. The deeper truth, visibility, perception, timing, and narrative matter more. If your work goes unnoticed, it might as well not exist. If your ambition is too loud, it becomes a threat. Your job is not just to perform, it's to perform strategically. Craft your image. Show competence, but never desperation. Help others, but always link your contribution to value. Be reliable, but unpredictable in advantage. When your name comes up in closed-door meetings, what story do people tell? If you don't design that story, someone else will, and you may not like the version they choose. In relationships, power dynamics are often disguised as affection or loyalty, but they still follow rules. People respect boundaries, not begging. They trust those who demonstrate self-sufficiency, not emotional dependency. If you want influence, you must stop needing validation. Start generating desire. Start withdrawing slightly to create space for others to reach toward you. It's not cold, it's gravity. Social proof matters. The way others perceive your value influences how you're treated. This is why powerful people build credibility before they need it. They understand that reputation is an asset that compounds. So be careful with every post, every statement, every association. Each one adds or subtracts from your long-term leverage. Let's talk negotiation. Most people beg for fairness. They come in hoping for recognition, approval, maybe mercy. That's weakness. The Machiavellian negotiates from position, not emotion. They frame the conversation. They set the tone. They create alternatives before entering the room. And if they must make concessions, they disguise them as generosity, never obligation. Here's a story. A man wanted a raise. He didn't whine or complain. Instead, he presented results. He outlined his value. But more importantly, he let his boss know, subtly, that other companies were noticing his work. He didn't ask. He created a situation where giving him more wasn't a reward. It was a necessity. He controlled the leverage. That's how influence looks in the real world. Now let's zoom out. Influence isn't just about getting more. It's about creating freedom. Freedom from being controlled, from begging, from being overlooked. Every principle you've learned leads to this, the ability to write your own rules. And it begins now, not in some future success, but in the next conversation you have, the next meeting, the next decision. Start noticing where people give away power. Start practicing silence. Start asking better questions. Stop explaining. Start shaping perception. These are not tricks. They are disciplines. In the next part, we move into the psychological shift that solidifies this identity. It's not enough to act like you're powerful. You must begin to believe it at the cellular level. Because if your self-image doesn't evolve, you will sabotage your own rise. And belief, more than strategy, is what creates unstoppable momentum. Power begins in the mind. Every tactic, every strategy you've learned so far will crumble it if your self-image is still chained to who you used to be. If deep down you see yourself as undeserving, small, or temporary, your actions will unconsciously reflect that belief. You'll play small in negotiations. You'll hesitate when opportunity knocks. You'll sabotage what you've built because some part of you still thinks it's not yours to keep. That's why transformation isn't complete until your psychology catches up. You must upgrade your identity to match the level of power you seek. Not just externally, but internally. The world mirrors your belief. Walk into a room with quiet certainty, and people feel it before you speak. Walk in with doubt, and they feel that too. Start here. Audit your self-talk. Do you constantly second-guess? Apologize for taking up space? Minimize your wins with phrases like, "I just got lucky." These are micro signals to your brain and to the world that you still live under the old rules, that you haven't claimed your new role. Confidence is not volume, it's presence. It's the way you sit, stand, speak, and listen. It's the refusal to explain yourself unnecessarily. It's asking, not begging. Walking away, not clinging. The powerful don't chase. They attract, not by force but by identity. Here's something few understand. The brain doesn't resist repeated identity. If you tell yourself daily that you are strategic, influential, and calm under pressure, your subconscious will begin to align with that image. And once it aligns, your behavior changes. Your posture shifts. Your tone deepens. You stop reacting. You start directing. But there's a caveat. Belief must be earned, not through fantasy, but through evidence. This is why discipline matters. Every small win, every silence held, every meeting dominated, every fear faced becomes a brick in your psychological foundation. Confidence built on action is unshakable. It doesn't shout, it radiates. Let me offer you a daily practice. Each morning, visualize the future version of you who already possesses the life you want. How do they move? What do they allow? What do they never tolerate? Then act like them. Not someday, today. That's how identity solidifies, through repetition and alignment. When you begin to live this way, something strange happens. People treat you differently. Opportunities arrive with less resistance. You don't beg for access, you become the one they seek out. Not because you said you're powerful, but because you believed it when no one else did. And remember, belief is contagious. When you embody confidence, others borrow it. When you embody clarity, others lean in. This is why true leaders aren't just skilled. They're grounded in identity. They don't react to chaos. They bend it. You're no longer becoming. You're already in motion. The old self, the moral, obedient, hesitant version, is gone. What remains is someone dangerous in the best way, disciplined, calculating, calm, and composed. In the next part, we'll examine how to protect this new identity, because once you begin rising, others will try to pull you back down, not always out of malice, but from fear. And you must learn to navigate that without losing your edge or your clarity. Once you begin to rise, resistance follows, not from the system, but from the people around you. Friends, family, colleagues, sometimes even strangers. They'll say you've changed, that you're cold, that you've become calculated. And in a way, they're right. But what they don't understand is that change was necessary. See, people fear transformation. Your evolution reflects their stagnation. When you stop playing small, they feel the pressure to grow. And most people would rather drag you back than rise themselves. Not because they're evil, but because comfort hates disruption. And you, by becoming more, are disrupting their illusion of normal. This is where many fall back. They confuse guilt with loyalty. They shrink to protect fragile egos. They downplay their wins so others don't feel left behind. Sometimes people can return to familiar patterns they have worked to move beyond. It is important to nurture your identity, your progress, and your momentum with confidence. This means establishing clear and healthy boundaries, which helps everyone understand and respect your journey. Remember, your ambitions and strategies are your own, and you are free to grow and evolve at your own pace. Here's a helpful practice. When you receive feedback, take a moment to pause before responding. Ask yourself if the perspective aligns with your own values and goals. If it doesn't, you can choose to let it go. Many opinions reflect a person's own experiences and point of view. And every time you take one personally, you give it power it never earned. The more visible you become, the more noise you'll attract. Some will try to discredit you. Others will mock your mask, your ambition, your methods. But don't react. Don't explain. Let silence do the talking. Let your results close the mouths your words never could. At this stage, composure becomes your armor. Let others gossip. Let them question your motives. Just keep building. Keep moving. Remember, lions don't turn when small dogs bark. They stay focused on the hunt. And when someone close to you begins to pull away, don't chase. Some people are only aligned with your former self. That's okay. Release them with grace. Because new levels of identity require new ecosystems. And your future doesn't have room for those who only loved your past. This path can be lonely, but it is also liberating. Because once you stop seeking external approval, you gain internal clarity. You stop second guessing. You start executing. You become your own validation, your own anchor. In the next part, we begin to close the loop. You'll learn how to transform all of this, strategy, identity, psychology, into a long-term system. Something that doesn't just win in a season, but wins across decades. Because real power isn't just gained, it's sustained. Power that isn't sustained is just a moment, a flash, a spark that fades. True dominance, true freedom, comes from systems that last, not bursts of motivation or isolated victories. And now that you've awakened, evolved, and begun to act, your next challenge is sustainability. Because rising once is hard, staying there without compromise, that's mastery. The first step in sustaining power is building systems around your habits. Discipline is not willpower, it's architecture. If your success depends on mood, energy, or chance, you will burn out. Winners don't rely on emotion, they rely on infrastructure. Calendars, processes, routines, rituals, automation, delegation. Systems make success inevitable. Let's say you're building influence. That influence can't just come from charm or cleverness in the moment. It must be backed by consistency. How often do you show up? What image are you reinforcing over time? Systems aren't just for businesses, they are for people. You are the product, the brand, the operation. Second, protect your inputs. Guard your energy, your focus, your time. The world is a constant barrage of distractions designed to make you reactive. But power doesn't come from reacting. It comes from responding with clarity. You must create environments that support your goals. Cut out noise. Limit pointless conversations. Curate who gets access to your attention. Third, replace goals with standards. Goals are destinations. Standards are identity. Don't just aim to win a deal. Decide that you never operate below a certain level. Don't just want to be respected. Carry yourself in a way that commands it. Standards shape behavior automatically. They filter what you tolerate, how you speak, what you build, and who you allow near you. Next, always be replacing yourself. The elite never stay in the same role. They ascend by making themselves unnecessary in the last position. Build teams, delegate outcomes, teach your systems. This allows you to scale without collapse. Power that depends entirely on you isn't power, it's pressure, and pressure burns. And finally, master strategic detachment. The moment you are too emotionally attached to a deal, a person, a project, you lose your edge. You must be able to walk away. Not with bitterness, but with poise. Power flows to those who don't need the outcome. That's leverage. That's control. Here's a visual. Think of a general standing calmly on a cliff, watching a battle unfold. He is not in the chaos. He designed the plan, delegated the execution, and waits for signals. That's you now. You don't run into every fight. You don't scramble for every win. You move with intention, with system, with sovereignty. This is how empires are built. Not in noise, but in structure. Not in hustle, but in rhythm. You are no longer chasing power. You are becoming power. And as we enter the final part, you'll bring it all together. The mindset, the philosophy, the strategy, and the identity. You'll see not just how to win, but how to live, rule, and rise in any room, any era, and any game you choose to play. This is where everything converges. Not into an ending, but into a new beginning. One where you no longer just survive the world's games, but shape them. You've walked through fire, dismantled illusions, shed obedience, embraced masks, crafted leverage, and hardened your identity. You're no longer a follower of the rules. You are now a builder of systems, a designer of outcomes, a sovereign force. Let's reflect on who you were when you started. Maybe you believed that being good would be enough, that honesty would be rewarded, that hard work alone could buy freedom. Those ideas weren't foolish. They were simply incomplete. Now you know the deeper truth. Power doesn't respond to purity, it responds to precision. And freedom doesn't arrive from permission, it arrives from audacity. You now wear morality like a well-tailored suit, refined, presentable, but easy to remove when the moment demands. You no longer cling to virtue for validation. You use it as a tool to shape perception, control environments, and move pieces into place. Your compass is not shame, it's strategy. You no longer work for approval. You build systems that generate results. You know the strength of patience, the force of leverage, and the genius of substitution. If you lack a resource, you replace it. If you face a wall, you find a door. You are no longer blocked. You are adapting faster than your obstacles. Your words no longer chase understanding. They create belief. You speak to desire, bypassing logic, and watching as influence flows to you, not through force, but through gravity. You divide not out of malice, but out of foresight. You create space, manage alliances, and move silently while others argue loudly. Most of all, you never apologize for your edge. You no longer dim your light to soothe fragile egos. You've accepted that discomfort is the price others pay to witness your ascent. And in that acceptance, you've become immune to shame, immune to noise, immune to smallness. This is your transformation. From moral idealist to strategic architect, from invisible worker to visible leader, from sheep to wolf. And not a wolf who howls, but one who watches, plans, and wins without needing to be seen until it's already done. Now it's your responsibility to protect what you've built and expand it, not with desperation, but with discipline, not with arrogance, but with calm certainty. Power is no longer something you seek. It is something you embody. So here's the final truth. The game doesn't end. Aim. It changes. And now you're not reacting to it. You are writing the rules. If this journey spoke to something inside you, something you always knew but couldn't yet name, then share it. Pass it on. Because power multiplies when truth spreads. And if you want more clarity, more fire, more strategy, subscribe to this channel. Hit like, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you are in your evolution, because this community isn't for the average. It's for those who are done playing fair and ready to win for real. Remember, the moral man obeys. The Machiavellian commands. Choose your side, and choose it with intention.